Liz Cheney has become much more prominent than I think she ever was before, primarily, and I would say exclusively, because she spoke out against Trump's lies about the 2020 election and said one of the most obvious facts, which is that Joe Biden did win the election fairly, squarely, and the claims that were being made by Trump and his allies were not true about it being stolen. And then she got even more prominent as she was kind of one of the front people in the January 6th Select Committee investigating January 6th and the events surrounding it. And while she's become very popular in some circles and respected by many because of those actions, of course, in the modern Republican Party, if you do speak out that aggressively against Trump's lies, you're gonna lose support within the party significantly. So because of that, her 2022 race is not looking good at all. But I have a really interesting thing to talk about and look at in relation to her or possibly other, what you would call more moderate, more a little bit more honest Republicans in what they're thinking about going forward, or what they maybe should be thinking about going forward. So as I was saying, 2022, not looking good for Liz Cheney. She will likely lose. But people are wondering what's next. I just want to quickly say, if you're someone who thinks, oh, she could run as a Republican and magically win, that's not happening. If you look at polling, it's Trump at the top, then DeSantis. DeSantis is as wacky as Trump in the sense of he would collect the same types of voters as Trump would. Some people just, they want the bad policies, they want the unhinged, they just don't want it in the body of Trump anymore. So they want to move on with the same level of kind of MAGA energy. And that's what DeSantis represents. So seeing that half of the Republican Party is sick of Trump doesn't mean half of the Republican Party would go for someone like Liz Cheney. It's, I would say, closer to 70% or 80 maybe who would go with either Trump or DeSantis. And then there's a sliver that wants someone more like Pence or Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger, but not nearly enough to defeat someone like Trump or DeSantis in a Republican primary. So let's just put that to rest. But there may be a really interesting opportunity if Liz Cheney chose to run for president, or if Adam Kinzinger, Mike Pence, as an independent. Now, the reason for this, and we're going to look at a few moments of her talking, indicating maybe she is thinking about this, is you could scrape away as an independent enough Republican voters to make it impossible for the Republican Party to win against the Democrats. Because obviously we're in a tough situation for the Democrats, where there's not an obvious presidential candidate who would absolutely do great. It's looking a little iffy, even though there's some options. It's not looking great in that department. But if you scraped away with an independent run by someone who is a Republican but just more reasonable, you could have 5, 6, 7, 8% of Republican voters say, I'm going to go vote for the independent presidential candidate who's a Republican that I respect. Because there are some Republican voters who don't believe in election lies and like someone like Pence or Cheney or Adam Kinzinger. What that would do, if you take away, with how close our elections are now, 5% even of one party's votes, that's it. Game over. If you could take away single digits percentage of the Republican Party votes in 2024 in the presidential race, you would give Democrats a sure victory. So Cheney's master plan could be to get enough support within the Republican Party not to win her own race for Congress, not even to have a chance in the Republican primary, but to run as an independent to scrape away enough voters from the Republican Party to allow the Democrats to win. So a moment here that was highlighted in a video that was really good by a CNN contributor shows a couple different things about how Cheney feels about her role in preventing Trump from getting to office, and indicates maybe that it would be more important to her to prevent Trump or someone like him than have the Democrats, lose. So let's take a look at that.
I am working hard here in Wyoming to earn every vote. But I will also say this, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say things that aren't true about the election. My opponents are doing that, certainly simply for the purpose of getting elected.
And at another point, she said this.
If I have to choose between maintaining a seat in the House of Representatives or protecting the constitutional republic and ensuring the American people know the truth about Donald Trump, I'm going to choose the Constitution and the truth every single day.
Now,
I just want to say, before we discuss one more clip from her and then the rest of this kind of topic, guys, I recognize that she is a lifelong Republican, has lots of policies that we would absolutely be against. But you don't have to be black or white on everything. I've heard even progressives not want to give Liz Cheney any credit for what she's doing. You have to recognize politicians care about staying in power. Cheney, as well as Kinzinger, made a conscious decision to choose the position of integrity and honesty and facts over their own political career. She knew the second she went out against Trump's lies, likely she was going to lose in her next congressional race. That is integrity. Now, she's not amazing. We're not going to get along with her on working on a lot of most policy issues, but our government should be filled with people, even if they're all over the political spectrum and believe all different things, who at least have enough integrity to do something like this when it comes to it and choose the obvious and honest path over the politically advantageous path. So it is totally good to give her credit for that, because that is what we should want in our politicians, whether or not we support them in their policy positions. Okay. That's a side note. But as you can see there, she's recognizing a little bit that, listen, 2022 may not go the way that she would want it to, but that's totally worth it with her doing the work that she's doing in the January 6th Select Committee. So let's look at one more clip and then we'll discuss.
Really, at this point, I have not made a decision about 2024. But I do think as we look towards the next presidential election, as I said, I believe that our nation stands on the edge of an abyss, and I do believe that we all have to really think very seriously about the dangers we face and the threats we face, and we have to elect serious candidates.
That pretty much tells you everything you need.
And then one last moment here.
Fighting hard, no matter what happens on August 16th, I'm going to wake up on August 17th and continue to fight hard to ensure Donald Trump is never anywhere close to the Oval Office ever again.
So if that's her honest stance, that after her election, regardless of how it goes, she's going to wake up the next day and continue attempting to do everything possible to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president again. Well, one of the ways that you could absolutely do that effectively would be to garner enough Republican support for an independent run where you take away enough Republicans from the Republican Party to make the mainstream Republican Party weak enough where they can't beat the Democrats. Again, no chance, nor would I even support Liz Cheney being president. But if she did run for president as an independent, she could have a chance of taking away enough votes from the Republicans to secure a Democratic win, which, while I'm sure she doesn't like Democratic policies generally, she definitely recognizes that for the sake of our country, the sake of the future of our country and our democracy, the Democratic Party is the better option right now. Obviously, I believe that in most situations, but from her perspective, compared to anyone who believes in the election lies, such as Trump, or who's that deceitful and dishonest like Ron DeSantis. So interesting stuff. If this is the reason why she's kind of working it right now and getting up her profile and really going against Trump and not wavering in her own race to get more votes so that she can be the person who prevents Trump from getting in office next time, that would be a really good plan. And again, that could be her. She seems like the person who would be most likely, but someone else, Adam Kinzinger, Mike Pence, I don't think Mike Pence would do this at all. But Kinzinger or Cheney, or they could run together, choosing to run as an independent to prevent Trump from getting in office by taking away just enough Republican votes. It would just be a little bit. They're not going to be super popular in the Republican Party, but just enough to secure a Democratic win. Very interesting, and gives me some hope about the Democratic Party's chances if Liz Cheney or someone like her decides to go down this path.